Am I the a-hole for getting my daughter a cake she doesn't like for her birthday? Yesterday was my daughter's birthday, and unfortunately, it did not go as well as I expected, despite my efforts in arranging her birthday. I spent countless of hours preparing her birthday, contacting friends, blowing balloons, decorating house, only to be heavily criticized by my husband and relatives in the end. Let me explain what happened. So first off, I feel like the person having the birthday should get to decide the cake. But let's read the rest before giving our final thoughts. I was responsible for purchasing the cake for my now 10-year-old daughter. My daughter isn't a big fan of chocolate cake, especially if it contains walnuts, and instead wanted a simple strawberry cake with vanilla frosting. That sounds good, yeah. Guys, who eats such a cake? I would, I guess. I'm aware we don't have the same preferences, but I can guarantee you no one I know is a fan of strawberry cake except her. I mean, strawberry cake seems fine. Strawberry shortcake, cheesecake with a strawberry glaze. I mean, there's plenty of strawberry desserts that are amazing, so I don't really get the big issue here. And anyways, I mean, she's a birthday girl, right? Shouldn't she be able to get her cake? You could get another cake if you wanted a different one. I couldn't let all the guests be disappointed with the cake only because she wants strawberry cake. I had to think about the majority. And I'll admit, I'm crazy over chocolate. So instead, I went with walnut chocolate cake and politely asked the baker if she could add some strawberries on top for my daughter. Right away, I noticed that you chose a chocolate cake with walnuts in it, even though you said that your daughter specifically likes chocolate cake even less when it has walnuts. Like if you did just want, like you say, chocolate cake for everyone to enjoy it, then why add the walnuts, especially since that's not a common combination. And walnuts and chocolate cake already makes it harder for guests. Like there's so many people who are allergic to nuts. Some people just don't like it. So if you're saying that you wanted the most common cake flavor, then why getting the walnuts in it? I didn't really have the time to tell her that I didn't get the cake she wanted, so she was really excited to eat the cake and asked us to start singing happy birthday 2 hours before the time we were supposed to. When she saw the cake, she was really disappointed. She started screaming and crying. I whispered and begged her to stop because the guests were looking, but she wasn't stopping and got so embarrassed. She ended up not eating the cake anymore, and the guests left earlier than usual because my daughter was really upset over the cake and couldn't get over it. I had a huge argument with my husband over this. Guys, don't get me wrong. While I was aware she wasn't a big fan of cake, I had no idea it was going to turn out like this. If I had known this, I would have just bought her the strawberry cake. Am I the a-hole here? In my opinion, yes. I don't see why you couldn't have just gotten two cakes since you were so insistent on having chocolate cake for everyone. And also, I don't think the reason that you gave of wanting to have the majority be happy with it is true because, like I mentioned before, why would you get walnuts in it if that was the case? I also don't see why the strawberry cake would have been such an issue. Like I can understand that's maybe not everyone's preferred flavor for like a birthday cake, but when it's not your own birthday and you're offered a cake, like strawberry is a very commonly liked flavor. I also feel like a birthday celebration is where you should be prioritizing the preferences of the person whose birthday it is. So even if the others don't love strawberry cake, I feel like that's fine. Like, first of all, it's not like you have to eat cake. Like, if you really hate it, I mean, if the other guests hate it, they can just not eat it. But at least the birthday girl will have her favorite cake, which is like a gift to her. Let's see what the comments have to say. Rega Lazar says, yes, you're the a-hole. It was your daughter's birthday, not everyone else's, especially not yours. Her birthday equals her choice of cake. It doesn't matter if she wanted fish sticks and custard. For her birthday, you get what she wants, not what you want. You owe her both an apology and a cake. Actually, I'd say you owe every single guest an apology for ruining your daughter's birthday party. L2R9X1 says, just get 2 cakes. People need more street smarts. Sapper12D says, W2F is wrong with strawberry cake anyways. It's good stuff. As Century says, I don't get it either. I mean, why would anyone choose chocolate cake with walnuts over a strawberry cake? Strawberries are awesome. Chocolate just sounds boring. All names on Reddit gone says, if OP had just chosen a chocolate cake, it could be about the guests. But chocolate walnut cake is way too specific. It's probably OP's favorite cake, and she can't believe her offspring dare to make choices different from her own self. And yeah, that's exactly, like, that was kind of my point before, that walnut cake isn't a very common flavor. Like, why would you get that if you were saying it's for the majority? Let me know what you guys think. Do you think OP was sincere in just wanting a cake for the majority? Do you think she should have gotten the strawberry cake? Do you think she should have gotten both? Or let me know whatever else you think below. Am I the a-hole for no longer making toys and furniture for my former sister-in-law after her new husband called them an embarrassment and me cheap for not paying for stuff? My brother died before his firstborn child was born. Because of this, I've had an above average involvement in my nephew's life. One thing I've always done is build him toys and furniture. It was a way of providing without the awkwardness of handing over cash. Also, between my late brother's cash and life insurance via work, a trust was set up for my nephew for around £500,000. He wasn't actually married to my sister-in-law. So £500,000 is a little bit over $640,000 US, or almost $873 Canadian. So a lot of money left in a trust for her nephew. Now, via the lab at work, I've made him a lot of wooden or 3D printed toys, but also some simple handmade electronic toys. My sister-in-law was always grateful for these, and my nephew, by all accounts, loves his custom toys. Fast forward 3 years, and my former sister-in-law has gotten married. I was attending my nephew's 3rd birthday, and I turned up the night before to assemble his present. It was a small climbing frame swing set I had watched better carpenters than me make in the lab. The new husband was a little standoffish, but come the day of the party, he was telling anyone who listened that I didn't pay or make the presents, and I had lackeys at work do it for free. This culminated in him calling all my presents an embarrassment, and given my fancy job, I could afford to splash some cash. I confronted him and my former sister-in-law, and she basically confirmed that whilst the presents were appreciated, she honestly expected more direct support from me after my brother's death. My mother stepped in and reminded her my brother paid for this house, and they regularly take cash out of the trust, approximately £10,000 a year. We walked out without hearing any worthwhile response, but I continued to see my nephew without incident. 6 to 7 months go by, and I'm visiting only to be told my former sister-in-law was pregnant with twins, and she was wondering if I could make some duplicates of items I made for my nephew, as they needed 2 sets. Wow, I can't imagine being that entitled and not embarrassed to be asking for more toys after me and my husband had just completely made fun of them. Like, why would she want to make more toys for you to just make fun of again? I scoffed, said she had balls asking me to make stuff after she was so ungrateful and I owe her unborn children very little. She got upset and explained her prior statements about my handmade gifts and said she felt they were the kind of little things someone did as a favor, not what a family provides. That's why she's asking me now as a friend to do a favor and manufacture duplicates. I said no again, and her husband shouted through that it didn't matter, they would just use the trust to provide for kids like it's supposed to. I retorted that it was for my nephew, and good luck accessing it for that because the trust requires my signature to pay out. Ooh, wow. Didn't think that through, did they? I wasn't even home before he was calling me to apologize, clearly unaware I held the reins to my late brother's money. Now they're apologizing. Before they were making fun of you, but now that he realized that you control the money, now he wants to be friends. The apology was insincere, and I asked to speak to my former sister-in-law, where I confirmed again I wouldn't be manufacturing her anything. I'll still be an uncle to my nephew and be impartial when it comes to her accessing my nephew's trust, but her husband has burned a lot of my goodwill with this. Am I the a-hole for not doing her a favor after all that? Oof. No, I don't think you're an a-hole for not wanting to make the toys again. I definitely would not be making any more toys. I mean, they just made fun of them, so why would you want to make more of them? If they want those toys, they can buy them since apparently they're not worth anything, right? So must be cheap to buy, I guess. Walk to the Brook says, not the a-hole. First, my condolences on the loss of your brother. Your sister-in-law is beyond entitled. She lives in a house for by your late brother and benefits from a trust and then has the gall to criticize your gifts to your nephew. Outrageous. OP replies, my mother's take on it, and she's spoken to them subsequently, is that they know the gifts have value to them. It's just the gifts didn't cost me anything, so I still owe something. As if there's an obligation. As his uncle, I owe him X and should put aside that amount for him. Because I use the equipment and materials from work, I'm not spending anything, so that money still exists, and he's owed it. First off, you don't owe them anything. And second of all, like, even if you didn't spend money to make those tools, you're still spending your time. And that time could have been spent with other things that would have earned you money. So technically you are spending money. It's just in a different way because, well, as the saying goes, time is money, right? Sensitive Cover says, not the a-hole. Sorry for your loss. Your brother was so smart to give you control over the trust for your nephew. That ensures your nephew's position is protected both financially and in this new family. Sister-in-law's new husband is bad news, and she doesn't seem to have a good judgment. If you didn't have oversight on things, I bet your nephew would have been robbed and neglected by these greedy people. Yeah, because right away the husband was willing to take money from the trust to pay for his new children, even though that money was left specifically by your brother for his son. So I'm really glad that the money is controlled by you and that they can't just be spending it, because otherwise it would be nothing left once your nephew is older. Like, I think nowadays they say that raising a kid to 18 is like 300,000, some places 400,000. I mean, depends where you live. But since there's 500,000 pounds there, and so even more in US dollars, that's enough to cover raising him and then college fees. And also there's the house, which hopefully is in his name. But if the money in the trust is split between the 3 kids, since there's 2 on the way, there won't be any money left over for your nephew's tuition fees in the future or whatever he wants to do with it. So that would not be fair, because your brother put that money for his kid and not for future kids with someone else. And I'm sure the husband now regrets his words, because now it's going to be even harder each time that they want to get money, and his plan of using it to fund his new kids is now ruined. There's an update. So I've had a few requests for an update, so here it goes. As highlighted in the comments of my last post, the main issue wasn't whether I manufactured anything for my former sister-in-law, it was the money my brother left his son. So whilst I felt it was an overreaction to their behavior to withhold gifts, I came to the conclusion I was underreacting to her husband's comments regarding my nephew's money. So I contacted the solicitor involved and pushed more responsibility onto them for signing off on money being withdrawn from the trust. She was required to enforce the trust documentation fully, and this has meant no more withdrawing money without explicit proof it was for my nephew's benefit. To my former sister-in-law's credit, she understood why I did this. She was sensible enough to see these boundaries were not my doing, but the insurance company's, and nothing has changed in regards to her relationship and time I spend with my nephew. Unfortunately, her husband took things badly and hasn't spoken to me since. On top of this, for the following months, he became incredibly petty regarding money. He would track to the last penny everything my nephew ate, drank, or played with. He was doing things like putting restaurant orders through with my nephew's food on a separate receipt or keeping track of prescription charges just so he could be in a position to claim the maximum value from the trust. The stress of raising their twins seems to have stifled this. Despite all the tracking, I've not been asked to sign off on anything thus far, but those receipts could still be claimed for. It's unfortunate, but I can't protect this money from legitimate, if petty, claims. I also fully expect the house bought with my brother's money would go to the husband were my sister-in-law to die, given their children together. She owns it outright with no strings attached. I've kept a close eye on how my nephew is being treated, and by all accounts, this hasn't trickled down to how my sister-in-law or her husband treat him at all. This seems to have been kept as a disagreement between adults regarding money, and my mother, who regularly babysits, claims her husband appears to be continuing to treat my nephew like his own. Despite that, our faith in my nephew's money, being the safety net it was always intended to be, has been shaken, so my recently departed mother got the ball rolling on starting a second, much more ironclad pool of money for my nephew. It's nothing overly elaborate, just money my late brother would have been entitled to, skipping straight to my nephew. Ideally, this won't have to be relied upon, but between what my grandmother set aside and our mother's intended will, my nephew will have enough for a head start in life, regardless of what happens to his existing money. It isn't a perfect solution, but when it comes to inheritance and family money, there rarely is. Oh, and in what's kind of become a side issue, I made the furniture in the end. Pro Blum says, wow, the pettiness of that man. He is going to do his darnest to drain that boy's money. His sister-in-law is complacent in this. I pray he has some left over when he reaches adulthood. Sereno says, yeah, shouldn't the mom pay for half of the child's expenses? And yes, exactly. This was also something I was thinking. Like, I understand if the mom is a stay-at-home mom or something, but otherwise, normally the mom should be paying part of it, and then the rest of the money would be for the child. Empath says that, but also who the F tracks a child's food usage? Sounds like he has nothing better to do in life. How is he even calculating the cost on home meals? Also, at some point, the kid is going to start noticing that they always get a separate bill for him when they go out and wonder why it only applies to him. Yeah, that will be a big issue in the future if he continues to do this. OP replies, I was somewhat limited by the 3,000 character limit here, so in the name of brevity, blew past it. To elaborate a little, we're fairly sure this receipt tracking was some attempt to stick it to me personally rather than to screw my nephew over. I screwed up here when I lost my temper, as outlined in the last post, and implied I had control of the trust fund after he obnoxiously claimed he would withdraw money from it for their benefit. I know how he is. I just invited him being petty. Doesn't make him less of a prick, but given the person who ultimately would have been hurt by this was my nephew, I should have been more careful. I can't make the husband less petty, but I should have avoided pushing him into being a douche at the kid's expense. For what it's worth, my mother cares for my nephew 5 times a week whilst they work and has seen a lot more of that side of things. From what she saw, he was pulling all this receipt BS as an attempt to one-up me, to circumvent the systems I indirectly put in place. Like I said above, he hasn't actually requested any of these receipts be reimbursed. I'm on alert for him mistreating my nephew, but so far this seems to be an attempt to prove me ineffective rather than hurt my nephew. Chill Housewife says, you sound beyond generous and understanding in this situation. I'm glad your nephew will have you in his life to look out for him and also to provide a good example. And yes, exactly. I'm glad you're looking out for your nephew. I'm glad the money is safe and he will also be getting the new trust fund set up for him. And I wish you and him the best of luck. Please leave a like, follow, and subscribe for more of these videos.